Hello and welcome to this second exploring session looking at the wounds of civil war by Thomas Lodge, Gent, written around 1588 and performed by the Admiral's men. We've done the first two acts and we found them in no way political or have any resonance to the modern day. In fact, we're going to be very careful to reduce the amount of attempts to discuss modern politics. We're going to try and discuss this play within its own universe and things. We really enjoyed the first two acts, and if you want to know more about that, go and watch the previous videos. It was quite good. We had a lot of fun. The opening was really quite dramatic, and it threw up lots of interesting character points and some really nice quotable lines. So do go back and pick up on that as and when you can. But we are going to be going on with Act 3 into Act 4. We're not going to quite finish Act 4 today, and we're going to see how far we get. And we have this wonderful team of readers in the room with us today who are going to be continuing the journey that we have started into the Roman Civil War. So, reading today, the part of Marius is...
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I live in the northwestern United States. I'm a writing teacher.
Reading Jailer and Arcathius today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian living in Yorkshire.
And of course, any of the pronunciations I go for names are probably wrong. Don't worry about it. We don't gatekeep too much here. Reading Pausanius and Flaccus today is Aliki.
I am? Wait a minute. What? Why have I marked different characters then?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
You might still be going from yesterday's Agranius and Favorinus, but today you're Pausanius and Flaccus.
Okay. Oh, Pausanius. Yes, I am. Sorry, I didn't recognize your pronunciation.
And there we have it, a demonstration in action. Reading Favorinus and Lectorius is...
Hello, I'm Valentina and I am in London.
Reading Pedro and Aristion today is...
I'm Alex Scott Fairley. I'm an actor from the Highlands of Perthshire.
Reading Cinna and also an echo is...
Hello, I'm Lindsay. I'm an actor and I'm currently under lockdown in Norfolk.
Reading Lucretius today is...
Hi, I'm Rachel, an actor from New Jersey.
Reading Anthony and Cornelia today is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I am an actor, still very much stuck in Germany. I don't think that will change anytime soon.
Reading Lepidus today is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm here.
Reading Octavius and Fulvia today is...
Hello, I'm Lois. I'm in London.
Reading Old Citizen, Soldiers and Messenger is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Young Citizen, Basillus and Young Marius today is...
Alexandra, and I am surrounded by construction.
And hopefully sound is functioning and he's definitely with us. Reading Cinna and Albinovanus is...
Hi, Steve Longstaffe in recently sunny North Lancashire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I am just doing stage directions, and I think I've covered everyone. I hopefully haven't missed anyone out. So we're going to dive straight into Act 3. We have got various people on the run from Scylla, who's on the march and generally triumphant. And so we may be finding out what happens with old Marius, and whether young Marius is going to lead any kind of counter-charge against Scylla. But we're going to start a scene here with Cinna, Octavius, Anthony, various lictors and citizens. So this is Act 3, Scene 1.
Upbraiding senators, bewitched with wit, that term true justice, innovation, you ministers of Scylla's mad conceits, will consuls think you've stooped to your controls? These younger citizens, my fellow lords, bound to maintain both Marius and his son, crave but their due, and will be held as good for privilege as those of elder age. For they are men, conform to feats of arms that have both wit and courage to command. These favourites of Octavius, that with age and palsies shake their javelins in their hands like heartless men attainted all with fear, should they then overtop the youth? Yeah, nor this Count Consul, nor Mark Antony will make my followers faint or lose their right, for I will have them equal with the best.
Why then, the Senate's name, whose reverend rule hath blazed our virtues midst the Western Isle, must be obscured by Cinna's forced power. O citizens, our laws of country left, is justice banished from this capital? Must we, poor fathers, see your drooping bands enter the sacred synod of this state? O brutish, fond presumptions of this age! Rome! Would the mischiefs might obscure my life, so I might counsel consuls to be wise. Why, countrymen, wherein consists this strife? Forsooth, the younger citizens will rule. The old men's heads are dull and addle now, and in elections youth will bear the sway. O Cinna, see I not the woeful fruits of these ambitious stratagems begun? Each flattering tongue that dallieth pretty words shall change our fortunes and our states at once. Had I 10,000 tongues to talk the care, so many eyes to weep their woeful miss, so many pens to write these many wrongs, my tongue your thoughts, my eyes your tears should move, my pen your pains by reason should approve.
Why, Antony, seal up those sugared lips, or I will bring my purpose to effect.
Doth Cinna like to interrupt me then?
I said it, I will interrupt you now. I tell thee, Mark, old Aunt Marius is at hand, the very patron of this happy law, who will revenge thy cunning eloquence.
Aye, talk not I to please or him or thee, but that I speak, I think, and practice too. 'Twere better Sylla learned to mend in Rome than Marius come to tyrannize in Rome.
Nay, Marius shall not tyrannize in Rome, old citizens. As Sylla late ordained, King Tullius' laws shall take their full effect. The best and aged men shall in their choice both bear the day and firm the election.
Oh, brave! Octavius, you will beard me then, the elder consul and old Marius's friend. And these Italian freemen must be wronged. First will the fruit of all thine honours fail, and this my poniard shall dispatch thy life.
Such insolence was never seen in Rome, or not wanteth here, but named to make a king.
Strike, villain, if thou list, for I am pressed to make as deep a furrow in thy breast.
The young men's voices shall prevail, my lords.
And we will firm our honours by our bloods.
Ooh, dramatic thunder peals in the background.
O false ambitious pride in young and old, hark how the heavens our follies have controlled.
What, shall we yield for this religious fear?
If not religious fear, what may repress these wicked passions, wretched citizens? O Rome, poor Rome, unmeed for these misdeeds, I see contempt of heaven will breed a cross. Sweet Cinna govern rage with reverence.
More dramatic thunder occurs.
O fellow citizens, be more advised.
We charge you, consuls, now dissolve the court. The gods condemn this brawl in civil jars.
We will submit our honours to their wills. You, ancient citizens, come, follow me.
And exit Octavius, with him Antony and Lepidus, leaving Cinna and various citizens behind.
High Jove himself hath done too much for thee. else should this blade abate thy royalty. Well, young Italian citizens, take heart. He is at hand that will maintain your right, that entering in these fatal gates of Rome shall make them tremble that disturb you now. You of Praeneste and of Formiae, with other neighbouring cities in Campania, prepare to entertain and succour Marius!
For him we live, for him we mean to die!
And they exit, and that scene ends. Oh, that was suitably dramatic, wasn't it? Yes, so the followers of both sides also are still not giving in here, are they? There's doesn't matter what the wider situation is out there in terms of battle and arms. There's still obviously on the ground a lot of feeling either way. Or am I reading that wrong? Lois?
Yeah, I'm just surprised that all the young men are on the side of old Marius and all the old men are on the side of young Sylla. I don't get it. Also, I don't see why Anthony is so keen on Sylla after having spent most of the previous 2 acts trying to calm him down. You must think that somehow there's some hope of reform, whereas there isn't in Marius. I don't know.
It's a good question. Anthony, having been presented with a bloody somebody's bloody head, maybe he's got no other place to go. It's a really good question for the actor playing Anthony, actually. The journey there, because that question of people who on the surface look like they're very reasonable, but then end up kowtowing to various forms of oppression, or helping to enforce it. There are plenty of examples of that in history. Stuff to dig into. Alan, I think I saw a hand.
Yeah, I think you've covered it, because I think Anthony is on the self-preservation ticket. You know, he's seen what's happened to his chum, so yeah, let's play it a bit cautious.
Helen?
I think Sylla is going for the established historical rights. I mean, going back to King Tullius, he's trying to re-establish the old rules, whereas Marius is breaking them up a bit. He's not abiding by custom, which is what is attracting the younger men to him, because he was a new man. He came from nowhere. He isn't one of the old families, whereas Sylla is technically.
Now that's exactly what I was going to say. Marius expanded Roman citizenship to the Italian cities and so on. He's been quite a radical force in the city.
And it's interesting, we've got this spreading out of this civil war. You know, it's one thing for the higher ups to get an army and have a battle. It's another thing for lower down the social strata, for people in the streets to be, and people slightly higher than that, still not actually confirming where they stand, or they're taking sides. And so there's the sense that something that started in a debating chamber is leaching out and bleeding into all parts of society, and that's really interesting. Lynn?
So I have a question, actually. Did we get a reason in the first act or a few scenes why the Senate decided to basically replace Sylla with Marius?
People gave reasons. Whether that's how true those reasons are, of course, is something that perhaps the play overall will answer. I don't know if other people leapt onto any specific reasons why that happened. Aliki?
I think he was partying rather than pursuing the war. He'd been appointed to go and fight General Mithridates, and he had a tiny victory and went, "Party time!"
Wouldn't be the first general to just win a very minor victory and then say, right, I think that's it, we'll clock off now. There's quite a few of them in history. Other thoughts? I mean, it's not a long scene, but the use of thunder, I'm really liking this. It's one thing for the main characters to be arguing, but when the citizenry start chiming in, that's when things start getting ominous. You know, that they've got followers who are willing to follow their actions, and then we get these extra peals of thunder off, which, you know, just the gods are not happy. And we've had other plays where we've had dramatic moments of thunder at certain moments in plays. So that has occurred elsewhere as well. Eric?
I was just going to say that this reminds me of sort of, I know we were trying to avoid the modern references, but it's just like sort of people fighting in Parliament, kind of.
Well, it's the extension of fighting in Parliament. I think that's the thing. That's what we had in the very opening of the play. This is further down the line. This is the supporters of the people, or the supporters of the supporters of the people. I mean, it's not even
So
first
it's
hand.
kind of an escalation sort of that previous stuff.
The boulder was dropped in the lake in Act 1, and now we're seeing those ripples going out, if we put it that way. Lynn?
So maybe what's going on here is that part of the Senate backing the change to Marius and part of the Senate backing Silius is really just sort of factionalism for factionalism's sake. It's like it's just an us against them thing. So this is that the military outcome is actually an expression of political factors that it's just like people can't get along. and so they back one guy just because the other team is backing someone else. Is that kind of what might be going on here?
Oh, it might be that people are backing the side that they backed earlier, and they don't necessarily have a good reason for backing any side anymore. It might be more that you've attached yourself to this cart. You're stuck. You're stuck there. I think that with Antony that's that element. Whereas with Lepidus, I think is a much. I seem to recall having a side in a much clearer way earlier. I could be wrong on that front because there are too many people called Lectorius somewhere in this play. I'm going to move us forward into the next scene. Hold on to any thoughts that you may have had and fit them in if you can. So we are going into a scene with old Marius, who's lost and has gone into hiding, hopefully with people who are going to be nice to him. Enter old Marius with his keeper, a jailer, and 2 soldiers.
Have these Menturians then so cruelly presumed so great injustice against their friends?
I, Marius, all our nobles have decreed to send thy head a present unto Rome.
A Tantal's present it will prove, my friend, which with a little smarting stress will end old Marius' life when Rome itself at last shall rue my loss, and then revenge my death. But tell me, jailer, couldst thou be content in being Marius for to brook this wrong?
The high estate your lordship once did wield, the many friends that fawned when fortune smiled, your great promotions and your mighty wealth, these, were I Marius, would have made me so, the loss of them would vex me more than death.
Is lordship then so great a bliss, my friend?
No title may compare with princely rule.
Are friends so faithful pledges of delight?
What better comforts than our faithful friends?
Is wealth a mean to lengthen life's content?
Where great possessions bide, what care can touch?
These stales of fortune are but common plagues that still mislead the thoughts of simple men. The shepherd swain that midst his country cot deludes his broken slumbers by his toil, thinks lordship sweet, where care with lordship dwells. The trustful man that builds on trothless vows, whose simple thoughts are crossed with scornful nays, together sweeps the loss of wealth and friend. So lordship, friends, wealth, spring and perish fast, where death alone yields happy life at last. O gentle governor of my contents, thou sacred chieftain of our capital, who in thy crystal orbs with glorious gleams lends looks of pity mixed with majesty, see woeful Marius, careful of his son, careless of lordship, wealth, and worldly means, content to live, yet living still to die, whose nerves and veins, whose sinews by the sword must lose their workings through distempered stroke, but yet whose mind, in spite of fate and all, shall live by fame, although the body fall.
Why mourneth Marius this recureless chance?
I pray thee, jailer, wouldst thou gladly die?
If needs, I would.
Yet were you loath to try?
Why, noble lord, when goods, friends, fortunes fail, what more than death might woeful man avail?
Who calls for death, my friend, for all it scorns? With Aesop's slave will leave his bush of thorns. But since these traitorous lords will have my head, their lordship here upon this homely bed shall find me sleeping, breathing forth my breath, till they their shame and I my fame attain by death. Live, gentle Marius, to revenge my wrong, and Sirrah, see thou stay not over long, for he that erst hath conquered kingdoms many disdains in death to be subdued by any.
And he lies down. Enter Lucius Favorinus, Pausanius, with Pedro, a Frenchman.
The most undaunted words that ever were, the mighty thoughts of his imperious mind, do wound my heart with terror and remorse.
'Tis desperate, not perfect nobleness, for to a man that is prepared to die, the heart should rend, the sleep should leave the eye. But say, Pedro, will you do the deed?
Mon monsieur, per le sang Dieu me will make a truth so large in ce belly that he shall cry oh comme un porceau. Fitre de lait, il a tué ma fadre, he kill my mother. Fait à ma trotte, man espère faire le fait d'un soldat, so. He ever come, il font à Paris, me will make a speechcock of his persona.
If he have slain thy father and thy friends, the greater honour shall betide the deed, for to revenge on righteous estimate beseems the honour of a Frenchman's name.
Mais messieurs, de faute d'avoir argent, me no point de argent, no point kill Marius.
Thou shalt have 40 crowns. Will that content thee?
40 excuses? Pour le pied de madame me give more than 40 si pretty damoiselle that have le dulces titinos, le lèvre sambrine, oh, they be fines.
Great is the hire, and little is the pain. Make therefore quick dispatch, and look for gain. See where he lies in drawing on his death, whose eyes in gentle slumber sealed up present no dreadful visions to his heart.
Bien, monsieur, je demeurerai contente. Marius, tu es mort. Speak thy prayers in thy sleep, for me shall cut off your head from your épaule before you wake. Qui est-ce? What kind of man be this?
Why, what delays are these? Why gaze you thus?
Nostre Dame, Jésus, Estienne, oh my signors, there be a great diable in sa eyes, qui dart the flame, and with the voice done bare, cries out, Villain, dare you kill Marius? Je tremble, aide-me, signors, autrement I shall be murdered.
What sudden madness daunts this stranger thus?
Oh, me no can kill Marius, me no dare kill Marius. Adieu, messieurs, me be dead si je touche Marius. Marius est un diable. Jésus Maria, sauve-moi!
And exit comedy Frenchman. I think we have to stop there. And just well done, Alex.
Super.
I can only apologise to any continental Europeans everywhere.
I suspect it was probably actually pretty close to what they did. You know, basically xenophobes for us, isn't it?
Well, haven't we had a comedy? Was it a comedy French murderer in another play? I'm sure there was.
Yes.
I don't know if it was French. It might have been somebody else.
Was it James the Fourth?
I think you may be right, Helen.
There's definitely one, and we can look that up. Hopefully by the end of this session, I will dig around and try and figure out which one it was. But there was definitely very similar comic business, and yeah, it just comes a bit out of the blue of this sudden. We had a moderately, very slightly comic character in the last act. You know, of a slave who was a little bit, a bit overexcited, I think, which was only mild, whereas this is just outrageous.
It's wake up the audience time, isn't it?
And it's
You
also
know, you might have been nodding off with all this high politics. Let's bring on the comic.
Well, and it's so unexpected. I mean, what I really like about it is you have this not unconventional by this point scene of, or maybe in terms of timing it might not be yet, but of condemned man or, you know, someone expecting to be murdered in their cell scene. It's all a bit dour and sad, and then they bring on the murderer, and what a murderer. He's not going to kill Marius. He would never do such a thing.
Could it be done as in a very sinister way? Could it not be a comedy Frenchman? I mean, I'm just asking. I'm not saying.
It's a very good question, and yes, we have just made an assumption because it read very well that way that maybe if we played it absolutely straight, it would function as well, if not better. It's a good question, Alexandra. Are you going to take that up?
I was wondering about the same thing, because if you take the dialogue out of the xenophobic context, it sounds serious. You know, the bits that I can understand, at least, like, it doesn't, there's a little bit of funniness in you know, me will make a spitchcock of his persona, but yeah, most of it can be taken seriously, and I wonder whether at the time the anti-Frenchness would have been the main event in this particular section, or whether it would be, and as usual, you know, we'll make the murderer someone we hate, and just kind of everyone understands that it's funny because it's true, but it's not as hilarious as it is to us. I wonder.
I don't know. I think the elaboration of the business he's going to be going into seems designed to be comic. I genuinely I don't know on that front. I'll go Alan, then Alex, then Helen.
I was just thinking that the dialogue is Cod French. The name is actually more Spanish, which may tie in with the date of putative first production of the year of the Armada. So it may be that they got someone who could do Cod French, but they didn't think they could get away with Cod Spanish. And the other question I got is the stage direction, which I assume is Exit Pedro. It's a Latin word I've not come across.
Runs away.
At pace.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Alex.
Is the same verb. Time flies.
I mean, I wonder if it's possible to have it both ways and have it sinister and comic.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I mean, I have to admit that I have form, because I played Dr. Caius in the play by the man whose name I won't mention, who is a similar figure, who is largely risible and ridiculous, but does have the ability to tank the main plot. There is a danger inherent in him, even though he is comic. And the same with there's a musical called City of Angels, which was actually on when the lockdown happened. Act one of that, if I remember correctly, ends with this ridiculous, slightly xenophobic Mexican trio singing this ridiculous mariachi song. But the words underneath it are like, you are going to be shut in a room and you are going to be murdered and your throat is going to be slit. And I think it can work to have it sinister and comic. I mean, even in The Princess Bride, what's his name? Whose name I always forget. You killed my father, Inigo Montoya, who is a total sort of cliche of that Spanish swashbuckling Errol Flynn-esque trope, but actually does have, particularly in the book, really sinister moments. So I think it's entirely possible to have both, but I totally buy that it would be playing to your audience. And also that actually you do throw the kitchen sink at it. I've never yet come across a character in any of these plays of this period who actually speaks solely the language they're supposed to be. I mean, he's got a Spanish name and he's totally misconjugating things and misdeclining things all over the place. So I think it is comedy foreigner to a degree. It's the man on the battlements in Monty Python hurling the cow, who is weird and strange and sinister at the same time as being ludicrously funny.
Yeah. I think also the thing is where what we maybe need to know further on is actually what the arc of Marius is going to be. So there might be more we can add to this a little later. Helen, then Lois.
Yes, but what we're missing here is the smelling of elderberries. The fact is, what I always look for in these Frenchmen is the word turd. Because this is the big thing that the Frenchman always mispronounces third as turd, and this comes up over and over again in plays. And that sort of misspeaking isn't here. There is nothing here. No unintended pun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's enough cod French to make him sound French, but otherwise it's an interesting match. But it's not.
Favorinus is taking him seriously.
Well, might be humouring him. It depends who you can hire. Sometimes you've just got to work with who you've got. Anyway, Lois.
Can't get the staff.
Yeah, I think the comic and serious bits are consecutive rather than concurrent. I mean, I think he starts out funny. He's talking about wanting money and, no money, no murder. But then, and I think there's a clear break. I mean, this, speak d'après me shall cut off thy head from your épaule before you wake. And then, suddenly absolute terror, which I think would be very effective, actually, ho, 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 comic murderer, yikes, as he just registers whatever it is about Marius that really does terrify him. And then he runs out. I think it can be great.
Valentina, before we move on.
I think in this case, obviously we'll have to try it, but even if you play it straight, I think it's going to be funny anyway, because it comes out like off the blue, and because the French is so prominent on it, that it just goes gonna look out of place kind of thing. Even if you play him straight, I think the audience is going to laugh.
Yeah, and the play, this scene is constantly changing directions. So there's an also amount that there isn't much room for psychological realism, if nothing else. And comedy is better at dealing with those kind of quick changes. But we will defer because we're not at the end of the scene yet. He's exited, run away, and Pausanius and Favorinus are standing there. How do they react to the exiting of their murderer? Aliki.
Mm-hmm. What fury haunts this wretch on sudden thus?
Oh, my Pausanius, I have often heard that yonder Marius in his infancy was born to greater fortunes than we deem. For, being scarce from out his cradle crept, and sporting prettily with his compeers, on sudden 7 young eagles soared amain, and kindly perched upon his tender lap. His parents, wondering at this strange event, took counsel of this soothsayer in this, who told them that these 7-fold eagles' flight forfigured his 7 times consulship, and we ourselves, except bewitched with pride, have seen him 6 times in the capital, accompanied with rods and axes too, and some divine instinct so presseth me that sore I tremble till I set him free.
The like assaults attain my wandering mind, seeing our bootless war with matchless fate. Let us entreat him to forsake our town, so shall we gain a friend of Rome and him.
And Marius awaketh.
Mark how happily he doth awake.
What, breathe I yet, poor man, with mounting sighs, choking the rivers of my restless eyes? Or is their rage restrained with matchless ruth? See how amazed these angry lords behold the poor confused looks of wretched Marius. Miniturians, why delays your headsman thus to finish up this ruthful tragedy?
But it be, Marius, from our thoughts or hence to wrong the men protected by the gods. Live happy, Marius, so thou leave our town.
And must I wrestle once again with fate, or will these princes dally with mine age?
No, matchless Roman, Thine approved mind that erst hath altered our ambitious wrong must flourish still. And we, thy servants, live to see thy glories, like the swelling tides, exceed the bounds of fate and Roman rule. Yet leave us, Lord, and seek some safer shed, where more secure thou mayst prevent mishaps, for great pursuits and troubles thee await.
Ye piteous powers that with successful hopes and gentle counsels thwart my deep despairs, old Marius to your mercies recommends his hap, his life, his hazard, and his son. Centurions, I will hence, and you shall fly occasions of those troubles you expect. Dream not on dangers that have saved my life. Lordings, adieu. From walls to wood I wend, to hills, dales, rocks, my wrong for to commend.
And Marius exits.
Fortune, vouchsafe his many woes to end.
And they exit as well. End scene. So having failed to murder him, they decide to just turf him out. Valentina.
I think we stopped at the wrong time, because I think this is a scene that is a comment on the superstition of these people, of how quickly they change their minds if they see what they think is a sign, as opposed to like being a comedy about a funny Frenchman. I think that's what the scene's supposed to be about.
Well, it depends on what the reason for Pedro's changing his mind is. Is it he's just seen this great figure of Marius and runs away? Because
Well, it says he's seen the devil or something like that.
Well, yeah, but is that a literal thing that he sees, the devil inside him, or is it more that he knows of this man? He is a dangerous figure. It's that question of what is actually Pedro's reason for changing his mind. Lynn, then Alan.
Yeah, what's really weird about this scene and about the Favorinus and Pausanius kind of changing their minds is that they all of a sudden remember a sign that happened when Marius, who is now old, was a kid. So, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 7 eagles landed on him. A soothsayer said that he's going to have 7 terms as consul, and he's only had 6. Oh, we just remembered that. I guess we better not kill him. What?
Yeah, it's like Pedro's reminded them of this thing from the past. He knows of Marius's history, and therefore that's why he I'm not going to kill someone as famous as him because of the things in the past. Alan, then Aliki.
I think Pedro's motivation for the change of attitude is simply the level of the price offered. You think I'm going to do this job on the cheap?
I don't think there's enough textual evidence for that, but it could be wrong. I mean, certainly it's true. The question of how much he gets paid is important, but it's much earlier in the scene. Aliki, then Alexandra, then Helen.
I think to answer Lynn's question, it makes more sense if you've seen the previous scene where they go, Marius is here, what are we going to do? He's so big and important, we owe him so much, but Sulla will kill us if he catches him here. So they just barely made that decision. So then having a reason not to do it, they can go, you know what? And remember there was that omen, and that works for me.
Yeah, that it was a near thing to begin with, and Pedro's fear kind of tips them back in the other direction. It's like, okay, no, we change our mind.
Alexandra, Helen, Lois.
I just wanted to point out, I forgot to point out previously, and we've been talking about it in the chat, Christianity. There's all of the expressions that Pedro uses in French, they're Christian, which of course does not suit well with the time period that we're supposed to be in. And it's going back to the superstition point. I don't know how that kind of fits. Like, it's obviously anachronistic for us, but I don't know whether there was a symbolism at the time. As in, is this a mockery of not just the French but of Catholics? And so, are there actually more layers to this scene as well as to that character that we're maybe missing?
we may also be possibly overthinking a straightforwardly comedy scene. Helen, Lois.
Yeah, I don't think we are overthinking it. I think that we've got to see the Frenchman as being showing all the despicable characteristics of his race as then considered. He's unreliable, he doesn't follow through, he's easily frightened by superstitious nonsense, and he's Catholic. Unlikely as that may be in a seriously BC setting.
Doesn't stop him being a comedy character.
True.
All of those things feed into that
Yeah.
logic. Lois.
Yeah, two things. One is that I would imagine the thing about the 7 eagles is probably in Plutarch or somebody who did a life of Marius. I don't know, and that's why it's in here. And second, I mean, it's not the reputation of Marius that affects Pedro, because he said at the beginning that this man killed his father. I mean, he's got every reason to hate him. He knows who it is. So it's clearly something that either happens, a stage effect, or just something that he thinks he sees when he actually goes closer to Marius. He sees the devil telling him that he's damned or something. I mean, it's it's something that genuinely terrifies him.
Yeah, there's after he says what kind of man be this. There's something occurs which is not actually noted, because the next line is what delays are these? Why gaze ye thus? Is it actual? Is it an actual thing staged, or is it something just in his mind? He just stops and does a thing. We have, of course, got other divine interventions in this play. We've got other divine interventions with a murderer in another play in King Lear, where the murderer is stopped because of thunder and lightning and things going off, and suddenly the murderer is terrified and runs away. So there may be resonances there. Valentina, very briefly before we move on, because we spent a lot of time on this very short scene.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, I just wanted to point it out that the superstition is not just in the Frenchman; it's everywhere in this play. As soon as something happens, they change their minds. They interpret everything as a sign. As soon as something doesn't go as it should go, they just change their minds, and they obviously then explain to themselves as something different maybe, but it's everywhere.
Okay, we will move forward into the next scene. Scene 3. Enter Sylla in triumph, in his chair triumphant of gold, drawn by 4 Moors before the chariot. His colours, his crest, his captains, his prisoners, Arcathius, Mithridates' son, Aristion, Archelaus, bearing crowns of gold and manacled. After the chariot, his soldiers' bands, Basillus, Lucretius, Lucullus, besides prisoners of diverse nations and sundry disguises. So quite a bit of pomp and ceremony, and most importantly, a chariot, which this company has presumably spent quite a lot of money on this financial year, and is going to get as much usage in as many plays as possible. And so the scene begins.
You men of Rome, my fellow mates in arms, whose 3 years' prowess, policy, and war 163,000 men at arms hath overthrown and murdered in the field, whose valours to the empire have restored all Grecia, Asia, and Ionia, with Macedonia, subject to our foe. You see the froward customs of our state, who, measuring not our many toils abroad, sit in their cells imagining our harms, replenishing our Roman friends with fear. Yea, Sylla, worthy friends, whose fortunes, toils, and stratagems these strangers may report, is by false Cinna and his factious friends reviled, condemned, and crossed without a cause. Yea, Romans, Marius must return to Rome, of purpose to upbraid your general. But this undaunted mind that never drooped, this forward body formed to suffer toil, shall haste to Rome, where every foe shall rue the rash disgrace, both of myself and you.
And may it be that those seditious brains imagine these presumptuous purposes.
And may it be. Why, man, and wilt thou doubt where Scylla deigns these dangers to aver? Sirrah, accept not so, misdoubt not so. See here Anaparius' letters, read the lines, and say, Lucretius, that I favour thee, that darest but suspect thy general.
And read the letters and deliver them.
The case concealed hath moved the more misdoubt, yet pardon my presumptions, worthy Scylla, that to my grief have read these hideous harms.
Tut, my Lucretius, Fortune's ball is tossed to form the story of my fatal power. Rome shall repent, babe, mother shall repent, ere weeping cloudy sorrows shall repent, wind breathing many sorrows shall repent. To see these storms concealed in my breast reflect the hideous flames of their unrest. But words are vain and cannot quell our wrongs. Brief periods serve for them that needs must post it. Lucullus, since occasion calls me hence, and all our Roman Senate think it meet that thou pursue the wars I have begun, as by their letters I am certified, I leave thee Cimbria's legions to conduct, with this proviso, that in ruling still you think on Scylla and his courtesies.
And have I not got Lucullus down? I will say, Stephen, could you read that part? I don't think you're saying anything else in this scene.
Line it off.
Or Lucullus.
Okay, the cue is Tilly be slain.
You think on Scylla and his courtesies.
Sorry, 2 seconds. The weighty charge of this continued war, though strange it seem, and over great to wield, I will accept, if so the army please.
Happy and fortunate be Lucullus, our general.
If he be Scylla's friend, else not at all, for otherwise the man were ill bested, that gaining glory straight should lose his head. But soldiers, since I needly must to Rome, Basillus' virtues shall have recompense. Lo, here the wreath, Valerius, for thy pains, who first didst enter Arcathius' trench. This pledge of virtue, Sirrah, shall approve thy virtues, and confirm me in thy love.
Happy be Sulla, if no foe to Rome.
I like no ifs from such a simple groom. I will be happy in despite of state. And why? Because I never feared fate. But come, Arcathius, for your father's sake, and join your fellow princes to their tasks, and help to succor these my weary bones. Tut, blush not, man. A greater state than thou shall pleasure Scylla in more baser sort. Aristian is a jolly timbered man, fit to conduct the chariot of a king. Why, be not squeamish, for it shall go hard, but I will give you all a great reward.
Humbled by fate, like wretched men we yield.
Arcathius, these are fortunes of the field. Believe me, these brave captives draw by art, and I will think upon their good desert. But stay you, strangers, and respect my words. Fond, heartless men, what folly have I seen? For fear of death can princes entertain such bastard thoughts, that now from glorious arms vouchsafe to draw like oxen in a plough? Arcathius, I am sure, Mithridates will hardly brook the scandal of his name. 'Twere better in Pisa to have died, Aristion, than amidst our legions thus to draw.
I tell thee, Scylla, captives have no choice, and death is dreadful to a captive man.
In such imperfect metals as is yours. But Romans, that are still allured by fame, choose rather death than blemish of their name. But I have haste, and therefore will reward you. Go, soldiers, with as quick dispatch as may be, hasten their death, and bring them to their end, and say in this, that Scylla is your friend.
Oh, ransom thou our lives, sweet conqueror.
Fie, foolish men, why fly you happiness? Desire you still to lead a servile life? Dare you not buy delights with little pains? Well, for thy father's sake, Arcathius, I will prefer thy triumphs with the rest. Go, take them hence, and when we meet in hell, then tell me, princes, if I did not well.
Exeunt various soldiers.
Lucullus, thus these mighty foes are down. Now strive thou for the king of Pontus' crown. I will to Rome. Go thou, and with thy train, pursue Mithridates till he be slain.
With fortune's help, go, calm thy country's woes, whilst I with these seek out our mighty foes.
And though there are no exit lines here or stage directions, we can assume that is the end of that scene. So after a moment of grand political theatre, of that entrance of various conquered peoples and chariots, etc., what's Scylla doing here with these speeches and this dialogue? Lindsay, how was your first impressions of Scylla?
Well, yes. You know, don't mess with this dude, basically. You know, very tyrannical, obvious. I mean, I wasn't always entirely sure of the text in terms of what was happening. I'm just trying to look back and see the bits that confused me. There was a bit. There's quite a few bits. For fear of death can princes entertain such bastard thoughts that now from glorious arms vouchsafe to draw like oxen in a plough? ? So these are the princes that are actually drawing the chariot. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got these various captured, conquered peoples who are there to form as oxen in a plough.
Okay.
Aliki put a nice point in the chat of or question rather about innuendo, and that there's something quite sinister about the way he's talking about these various individuals who for the most part do not have dialogue. They get the odd line, and how that functions. Anyone got any thoughts on that or other thoughts from the room? Lois first.
Well, this is, again, I don't know whether it is before or after Tamburlaine, but Tamburlaine, of course, enters in a chariot drawn by 4 kings and has the famous line, "Holla, ye pampered jades of Asia, can you but draw 20 miles a day?" And there's no question of their doing it. And this is I don't know if this is a variation on it or the other is a variation on this, but it seems typical of Scylla that he pretends to be sort of joking and he keeps changing mood. You know, good heavens, are you really willing to do this base thing? I think you'd be happier dead, wouldn't you? Yeah, let's kill them. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this gaming with their lives in this mercurial way. Yes, and yes, it's this capital expenditure that the admiral's men have invested in. And clearly you've got a chariot. It's got to be pulled by men because you're not going to get horses on that stage. So yeah, which we're not going to play chicken and egg here. Maybe they just all went, right, what are we going to do with the chariot? Everyone have a go. And this is what Lodge came up with. Lynn.
It's definite. It reminded me of Tamburlaine as well. Just that's sort of over the top arrogance, and he even has a line about fate that reminds me of "I hold the fates bound fast in iron chains, and with my hand turned fortune's wheel around." Something like a boast about fate not even being more powerful than he is. So he's really kind of got that over the top arrogance going, and it's an interesting contrast to Marius, who seems to have a more humble and humane temperament.
Lindsay.
Yes. Oh God, I've completely lost my point. Oh yes. Have we thought about in terms of logistically, if this chair or chariot is so magnificent and fabulous, and it requires 4 men to carry it, well-timbered men, is there an idea that Scylla, sorry I wasn't here yesterday, but is there an idea that Scylla is perhaps young? Do we know this?
No.
Not a sort of boy king or anything. Apologies for my ignorance.
It's definitely younger, but there's no absolute. I don't think there's an absolute age range on that. Aliki.
I think Scylla is in his 30s, to answer your question, if we're going for like historical person. And I just think if this is a triumph, then you just enter with chariots. That's what you do. I don't think you have to think too hard about why the chariot. To go back to what I was saying in the chat, that line, he says, blush not. Where is that? It's, Tut, blush not, man, a greater state than thou shall pleasure Scylla in a more baser sort. It seems to me that he's saying, no, don't worry, I'm not going to rape you. That's going to be somebody else. You're just going to be executed.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be that if you think your fate is really demeaning, don't worry, somebody even better than you is going to have an even worse fate. Which could be that, could well be.
And I know that actual Roman history isn't that relevant, but Sulla had a foul reputation sexually.
Well, I was going to say, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't the line more that he's got other people in line for that kind of business rather than the people who are there in the chariot? We do need to move on because we've got very bogged down in some of these earlier scenes. But Eric, very briefly.
I was just going to say, this sounds like he's sort of, reading the letter and stuff and that kind of stuff. It feels like he's legitimizing what he's doing, sort of. As in sort of, justifying it by saying, look, I'm this great guy and I conquered everything, so I'm king, and I have the power to do anything I want to you people.
Yeah, that works. Alexandra, very briefly.
What's important, I think, also is that what he does in the scene before the letter is reward the people around him, reward his generals, give them power, and also establish that Marius is going back to Rome, so I have to go back and get rid of him. We're all having a wonderful time. I'm really enjoying, enslaving these people, but I have to kill them because I've got other business.
Okay, we're going to move into the next scene, last scene of the act, and we're back with Marius, and things are not going well. I think it's fair to say. The opening stage direction of scene 4. Enter Marius Solus from the Numidian mountains, feeding on roots.
Thou that hast walked with troops of flocking friends, now wanderest midst the labyrinth of woes. Thy best repast with many sighing ends, and none but fortune all these mischiefs knows. Like to the stretching mountains clad with snow, no sunshine of contents my thoughts approacheth. High spires their tops, My hopes no height do know, but mount so high as time their track reproacheth. They find their spring where winter wrongs my mind. They weep their brooks, I waste my cheeks with tears. O foolish fate, too froward and unkind, mountains have peace where mournful be my years. Yet high as they my thoughts some hopes would borrow, and when I count the evening end with sorrow. Death in Minturnum threatened Marius' head. Hunger in these Numidian mountains dwells. Thus with prevention, having mischief fled, old Marius finds a world of many hells, such as poor simple wits have oft repined. But I will quell, by virtues of my mind, long years misspent in many luckless chances, thoughts full of wrath, yet little worth exceeding. These are the means for whom fate advances. But I, whose wounds are flesh, my heart still bleeding, live to entreat this blessed boon from fate, that I might die with grief to live in state. 600 suns with solitary walks I still have sought for to delude my pain, and friendly echo answering my talks rebounds with accent of my truth again. She, courteous nymph, the woeful Roman pleaseth, else no consort but breasts my pains appeaseth. Each day she answers in yon neighboring mountains, I do expect, reporting of my sorrow, while lifting up her locks from out the fountain, she answereth my questions, even and morrow, whose sweet rebounds my sorrow to remove, to please my thoughts, I mean for to approve. Sweet nymph, draw near. Thou kind and gentle echo?
Aye.
What help to ease my weary pains have I? What comfort in distress to calm my griefs?
Griefs.
Sweet nymph, these griefs are grown before I thought so.
I thought so.
Thus Marius lives disdained of all the gods.
Gods.
With deep despair, late overtaken wholly.
O lie.
And will the heavens be never well appeased?
Appeased.
What means have they left me to cure my smart?
Art.
Not better fits old Marius' mind than war.
Than war.
Then, full of hope, say Echo, shall I go?
Go.
Is any better fortune then at hand?
At hand.
Then farewell, Echo, gentle nymph, farewell.
Farewell.
Oh, pleasing folly to a pensive man. Well, I will rest fast by this shady tree, waiting the end that fate allotteth me.
He sits down. Enter Marius the son, Albinovanus, Kataigida, and Lectorius with soldiers.
My countrymen and favourites of Rome, this melancholy desert where we meet resembleth well young Marius' restless thoughts. Here dreadful silence, solitary caves, no chirping birds with solace singing sweetly are harboured for delight, but from the oak, leafless and sapless through decaying age, the screech owl chants her fatal boding lays. Within my breast, care, danger, sorrow dwell. Hope and revenge sit hammering in my heart. The baleful babes of angry Nemesis disperse their furious fires upon my soul.
By Marius, are you discontented still, when as occasion favoureth your desire? Are not these noble Romans come from Rome? Hath not the state recalled your father home?
And what of this? What profit may I reap that want my father to conduct us home?
My lord, take heart. No doubt this stormy flaw that Neptune sent to cast us on this shore shall end these discontentments at the last.
Whom see mine eyes? What? Is not yon my son?
What solitary father walketh there?
It is my son. These are my friends I see. What? Have sore pining cares so charged me, or are my looks distempered through the pains and agonies that issue from my heart? Fie, Marius, frolic man, thou must to Rome, there to revenge thy wrongs and wait thy tomb.
Now, fortune frown and palter if you please. Romans, behold my father and your friend. Oh, father!
Marius, thou art fitly met. Albinovanus and my other friends, what news at Rome? What fortune brought you hither?
My lord, the consul Cinna hath restored the doubtful course of your betrayed state, and waits your present swift approach to Rome. Your foeman Sylla posteth very fast with good success from Pontus to prevent your speedy entrance into Italy. The naming cities are your very friends. Naught rests, my lord, but you depart from hence.
How many desert ways hath Marius sought? How many cities have I visited to find my father and relieve his wants?
My son. Sorry. My son, I'll quite thy travels with my love, and lords and citizens, we will to Rome. And join with Cinna. Have you shipping here? What, are these soldiers meant to die with me?
Content to pledge our lives for Marius.
My lord, here in the next adjoining port, our ships are rigged and ready for to sail.
Then let us sail into Etruria and cause our friends, the Germans, to revolt, and get some Tuscans to increase our power. Deserts, farewell. Come, Romans, let us go. A scourge for Rome that hath depressed us so.
And we reach the end of the act, and we get several things we've seen in other plays elsewhere. We've got an echo scene. Always love an echo scene. They're always so nicely effective. I'm trying to think of other relatively recent echo scenes that we've done.
Is there a bit in that text where Echo's first line should come in between Marius's next two lines?
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. That makes sense. That the echo there is misplaced because Echoed is not echoing anything at that particular point. Whereas Echo is actually very clever about some of her echoes. Some really whole lie, oh lie, is nicely done. But also we've got random person eating roots in the wilderness. I think we've had that at least twice now. Or someone desperate and alone in the wilderness, scrabbling around for food. So there's all sorts of interesting, and these are plays in my memory that are all living around about this same time. So there's interesting things happening across companies as well that are interesting overlaps. So I'm liking this. And then we get a reconciliation scene. Huzzah! Yeah, I'm definitely feeling interesting crossover with King Lear at the moment. The true chronicle history has got some interesting parallels with this. Thoughts from the room, relatively briefly. Who wants to leap in? Helen.
Yes, that last at the end. I mean, Marius is all very, miserable but philosophical, and then there is a plan, there is a possibility, and he's very crisp and organized and leaps into being Marius, the commanding general, very, very fast.
Well, they probably handed him a Lucasade, and he's buzzing. That's that. We're not sponsored by anyone, by the way. Other over sugary drinks are available. Alexandra.
I just wanted to reiterate something that we've been discussing in the chat, which is that there's a massive contrast here, and it must be intentional, between Sulla coming on with loads and loads of people that he is ruling over and kind of distributing favors to his friends, and then Marius immediately afterwards being completely alone and being found by his friends. And also their attitude towards fate, I think, is intentionally contrasting, and I think it's really well done.
Yes, and if nothing else, because Marius's friends have to get changed, so they need something to break up the on a very pragmatic level. If everyone was on stage in the previous scene apart from Marius, they've all got to go and change their hats. Eric.
I was gonna say that it's interesting that because like they seem to take into account that they are away from Rome, so it's gonna take time. Like even if things don't change for them while they're traveling to Rome. The state of things in Rome might change. So, like, the Cinna might decide, that he's not supporting Marius anymore, for example, or things can change within like minutes, and by the time they hear about it, it's going to be, well, maybe not too late, but sort of preemptively problematic with what they're trying to do.
Yes, and what we're seeing is we've gone from the Empire to Luke picking up Obi-Wan, or the other way around. I'm not sure. There's very much the sense of the big pomp of as Alexandra said, to the resistance. Moving. Any additional thoughts on that scene? Before we move on, we've got quite a big chunky scene to get through next. It sort of never ends. I don't think there's any break in this. I think this is all one continuous scene, so I may pause at some point. But before we go on, I see two hands, so I'll go to Alexandra, then Eric very briefly.
Just very quickly, I think it's interesting that they are both given the motivation to go back to Rome by being told that the other guy is in a hurry to get there. And we find out that, Marius wasn't, but as Sulla was told, but now he is because Sulla's going. And we're leading up to a confrontation in a very, very nice, again, structurally very nice way.
Lovely. Eric.
Also, I find it interesting that sort of Sulla is basically going straight back to Rome because I don't know, he's conquered everything, blah blah. And then Marius is taking a roundabout route to get to cause problems within the empire and get more support, basically. So it's sort of the two different approaches to strategy as well.
Well, that's what various rebellions, the plan often is that you're going to land somewhere and pick up an army as you go of people who'll be on your side. The hopes and dreams of so many failed rebellions function in this way. That is not a spoiler for what's going to happen next. History, frankly, isn't a spoilery thing. So we will move into Act 4, Scene 1, and say I think this is a very long scene, and this is going to be the bulk of what we're going to now complete this session with. So we may pause at least once in the middle of this scene. But for the moment, we'll just let it flow. Enter Mark Antony, Lepidus, Octavius, and Flaccus, and various senators.
What helps, my lord, to overhail these cares? What means or motions may these mischiefs end? You see how Cinna, that should succor Rome, hath levied arms to bring a traitor in. A worthless traitor, woe to thine and thee that thus disquieteth both Rome and us.
Octavius, these are scourges for our sins. These are but ministers to heap our plague. These mutinies are gentle means and ways, whereby the heavens our heavy errors charm. Then, with content and humbled eyes, behold the crystal shining globe of glorious Jove. And, since we perish through our own misdeeds, go let us flourish in our fruitful prayers.
Midst these confusions, mighty men of Rome, why waste we out these troubles in words? Weep not your harms, but wend we straight to arms. Lo, Ostius spoiled, see Marius at our gate, and shall we die like milksops, dreaming thus?
A bootless war to see our country spoiled.
Fruitless is dalliance, whereas dangers be.
My lord, may courage wait on conquered men?
Aye, even in death most courage doth appear.
Then, waiting death, I mean to seat me here, hoping that consul's name and fear of laws shall justify my conscience and my cause.
Enter a messenger.
Now, sirrah, what confused looks are these? What tidings bringest thou of dreariment?
My lords, the consul Cinna with his friends have let in Marius by Via Appia, whose soldiers waste and murder all they meet, who, with the consul and his other friends, with expedition hasteth to this place.
Then to the downfall of my happiness, then to the ruin of this city Rome. But if mine inward ruth were laid in sight, my streams of tears should drown my foes' despite.
Courage, Lord Anthony. If fortune please, she will and can these troubles soon appease. But if her backward frowns approach us nigh, resolve with us, with honor for to die.
No storm of fate shall bring my sorrows down, but if that fortune list, why let her frown?
Where states oppressed by cruel tyrants be, old Antony, there is no place for thee.
Apologies, yes, at this point, drums strike from within.
Hark, by this thundering noise of threatening drums, Marius with all his faction hither comes.
Then, like a traitor, he shall know ere long, in levying arms he doth his country wrong.
Enter Marius, his son, Cinna, Kataigida, Lectorius, with soldiers, upon the sight of whom Mark Antony presently flies.
And have I got the goal of honor now, and in despite of consuls entered Rome? Then rouse thee, Marius, leave thy ruthful thoughts, and for thy many cares and toils sustained, afflict thy foes with quite as many pains. Go, soldiers, seek out Bedius and his friends, Attilus, Lectorius, and the rest, cut off their heads, for they did cross me once. And if your care can compass my decree, remember that same fugitive Mark Antony, whose fatal end shall be my fruitful peace. I tell thee, Cinna, nature armeth beasts with just revenge, and lendeth in their kind sufficient warlike weapons for defense. If then, by nature, beasts revenge their wrong, both heavens and nature grant me vengeance now. Yet whilst I live and suck the subtle air, that lendeth breathing coolness to my lights, the register of all thy righteous acts, thy pains, thy toils, thy travails for my sake, shall dwell by kind impression in my heart. And I, with links of true unfeigned love, will lock these Roman favorites in my breast, and live to hazard life for their relief.
My lord, your safe and swift return to Rome makes Cinna fortunate and well apaid, who, through the false suggestions of my foes, was made a cipher of a council here, lo, where he sits commanding in his throne, that wronged Marius, me, and all these lords.
To quite thy love, Cinna, let me alone. To quite his love, Cinna, let me alone. How fare these lords that lumping, pouting, proud, imagine now to quell me with their looks? Now, welcome, sirs. Is Marius thought so base? Why stand you looking babies in my face? Who welcomes me, him Marius makes his friend. Who lowers on me, him Marius means to end.
Happy and fortunate thy return to Rome.
And long live Marius with fame in Rome.
I thank you, courteous lords that are so kind.
But why endures your grace that braving mate to sit and face us in his robes of state?
My son, he is a consul at the least, and gravity becomes Octavius best. But Cinna, would in yonder empty seat you would for Marius' freedom once entreat?
Cinna presseth up, and Octavius stayeth him.
Avaunt, thou traitor, proud and insolent, how darest thou press near civil government?
Why, Master Consul, are you grown so hot? I'll have a present cooling card for you. But therefore be therefore well advised, and move me not. For though by you I was exiled from Rome, and in the desert from a prince's seat left to bewail ingratitudes of Rome, though I have known your thirsty throats have longed to bathe themselves in my distilling blood, Yet Marius, sirs, hath pity joined with power. Lo, here the imperial ensign which I wield, that waveth mercy to my wishers well. And more, see here the dangerous troth of war, that at the point of steel with gas that at the point is steeled with ghastly death.
Thou exile, threatenst thou a council then? Lictors, go draw him hence. Such braving mates are not to boast their arms in quiet states.
Go draw me hence? What? No relent, Octavius.
My lord, what heart endureth with revenge could leave this lozzel threatening murder thus? Vouchsafe me leave to taint that traitor seat with flowing streams of his contagious blood.
Ah, the father's son. I know him by his talk, that scolds in words when fingers cannot walk.
Oh.
But Jove, I hope, will one day send to Rome the blessed patron of this monarchy, who will revenge injustice by his sword.
Such braving hopes, such cursed arguments, so strict command, such arrogant controls. Suffer me, Marius, that am consul now, to do thee justice and confound the wretch.
Cinna, you know I am a private man that will submit my censures to your will.
Then, soldiers, draw the traitor from the throne and let him die, for Cinna wills it so.
Aye, now my Cinna noble consul speaks. Octavius, your checks shall cost you dear.
And let me die, for Cinna wills it so. Is then the reverence of this robe contemned? Are these associates of so small regard? Why then, Octavius willingly consents to entertain the sentence of his death. But let the proudest traitor work his will, I fear no strokes, but here will sit me still. Since justice sleeps, since tyrants reign in Rome, Octavius longs for death, to die in Rome.
Don't strike him where he sits, then hale him hence.
Heavens punish Cinna's pride and thy offence.
A soldier stabs him and he is carried away.
Now, is he fallen that threatened Marius? Now will I sit and plead for Marius.
Thou dost me justice, Cinna, for you see these peers of Rome late exiled me.
Your lordship doth injustice to accuse those who in your behalf did not offend.
Ye grieve to see the aged Marius stand like a private man in view of Rome.
Then bid him sit and, an empty place. Revoke his exile from his government, and so prevent your farther detriment.
We will account both Marius and his friends, his son, and all his followers free in Rome. And since we see the dangerous times at hand and hear of Sylla's confidence and haste and know his hate and rancor to these lords, we him create for consul to prevent the policies of Sylla and his friends.
Then, both confirmed by state and full consent, the rods and axe to Marius I present, and here invest thee with the consul's pall.
Long, fortunate, and happy life betide old Marius in his sevenfold consulship.
And so let Marius live and govern Rome, as cursed Sulla never look on Rome.
And we'll pause there. There's a stage direction that I think is misplaced, that at this point Marius should sit, taking his place. Yes, Cinna's having fun this scene, isn't he? There's all sorts of stuff. I'm liking Octavius as a character who I don't think we've met before, who seems to be that officious kind of person saying, look, there are rules, there's rule of law, there's systems of doing these things. You're not allowed up there. You can't assume all these powers. You can't just walk in here with an army. And exactly like in the earlier scene with Sylla, he's quickly disabused of this notion of how power functions. On stage, whereas last time someone was quietly taken off stage and their head was brought on, this time they actually stab him in the seat of government. So that's a really big thing. I also, just before I go to the room, I particularly like Lepidus's voting record. So presented with Marius's return, Lepidus here says, and long live Marius with fame in Rome. Lepidus's earlier voting with when Cinna was brought on ahead, we do decree that Cinna shall be general. So I'm noticing Lepidus is very much reading the room quite well now. He didn't need someone to get stabbed in front of him the second time to decide which side his bread was buttered on. Yeah, I mean, this escalates so quickly. We went from Marius eating roots a minute ago, reunited with his son, and then within a few rather intemperate people and the arrival of a messenger saying, plots arriving really quickly, guys. It's suddenly, yeah, Marius has gone from being a victim to being the oppressor. We're still about halfway, maybe a third of the way through this scene. We can't linger too long here. Thoughts in the room? And Rachel?
This is like what Alexandra was saying before, how Marius and Cinna, they kind of meet in Rome at the same time, but I just like scrolled past it, I'm sure, but like I think it's Flaccus, after young Marius talks, he greets him and like welcomes him back to Rome. And before that, young Marius was saying that he was going city to city, and so did Cinna return to Rome thinking it was old Marius returning to Rome, who just happened to return by coincidence, when really who he was hearing about was young Marius returning to Rome and catching word of him returning to Rome after having searched high and low in every other Roman city for his father and perhaps giving up and just returning to Rome at last. And then also coincidentally meeting his father there. Or did he know that it was young Marius and was returning perhaps to get rid of young Marius as well?
I think generally, as far as the local politicians are concerned, it doesn't matter which Marius it is who's arriving. They've got an army. They're both quite miffed. And the fact that they've managed to reunite probably doesn't matter. I mean, the operative thing here is that the messenger's saying the soldiers are coming, whose soldiers waste and murder all they meet. I mean, this is a big return, and obviously the person who's in theory in charge hasn't returned to Rome yet. So there's a vacuum of power to be taken here. You take Rome, you take the Republic, as it were. Other thoughts? It's a really clever scene. Again, in terms of it is repeating the kind of business we had earlier, but it's doing it in a different way and an engaging way, and it's quite surprising, and it's quite depressing that you give someone a little bit of power and it's immediately head choppy time, or stabby time. Alexandra.
And it's also really important who gets the stab, right? Because it's Cinna's co-consul. We have seen him before. We saw Octavius in the scene immediately after the letter came to Marius saying, I'm a consul now, I'm going to revert your banishment. So what's happening is he's, I think, quite clearly, as beautifully rendered by Stephen, literally clearing the seat for him to sit in, for himself to take over that power and manipulating everybody in the room through exactly the same tactics that we've seen Cinna use, into giving him what is, again, the supreme position.
Yeah, and Cinna really enjoys sort of working the room there, doesn't he? There's something really slimy about Cinna in this scene. Lois?
Yeah, we've seen Octavius, in fact, from the beginning, I should know since I was reading him, and he was the one that was on the side of the old men. It's all tradition that the old men do all the choosing. So he's still upset right at the end that, old things are being disregarded, now that everything is changing, I might as well be dead. So they kill him.
What name was he going under? He wasn't going under Octavius, was he?
Yeah, he was still Octavius in the beginning of Act 3.
Oh, of Act 3. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm looking in the wrong place. I was talking about the yesterday. Sorry. Yes. So it's a continuation of that. The argument they were having earlier. Yes. Sorry. Getting confused across days. Other thoughts before we move to the end to complete this scene? And dare I say it? And I know if this is a dramatic turn that's about to happen. The entrance of not just one woman but two.
Wow.
I know. It's controversial. Any additional thoughts before we rattle to the end of this scene? So it's an epic scene with all sorts of things going on. Okay, we'll go on from Marius sitting down, taking his seat in the consul's throne, having been offered it rather unctuously by Cinna.
Placed in consul's throne, you Roman states, recalled from banishment by your decrees, installed in this imperial seat to rule, old Marius thanks his friends and favorites, from whom this final favor he requires, that seeing Sylla by his murderous blade brought fierce seditions first to head in Rome, and forced laws to banish innocence, I crave by course of reason and desert that he may be proclaimed, as erst was I, a traitor and an enemy to Rome. Let all his friends be banished out of town, then, cutting off the branch where troubles spring, Rome shall have peace and plenty in her walls.
In equity, it needs must be, my friends, that one be guilty of our common harms. And since that Marius is accounted free, Sylla with all his friends must traitors be.
My father's reasons, Romans, are of force. For if you see and live not to secure, you know that in so great a state as this, two mighty foes can never well agree.
Then let us seek to please our consul first, and then prepare to keep the exile out. Cinna, as Marius and these lords agree, firm this edict and let it pass for me.
Then, Romans, in the name of all this state, I here proclaim and publish this decree, that Sylla with his friends, allies, and all are banished exiles, traitors unto Rome, and to extinguish both his name and state, we will his house be razed to the ground, his goods confiscate. This our censure is. Lictor, proclaim this in the marketplace and see it executed out of hand.
Exit Lictor to deliver the press release.
Now see I, senators, the thought, the care, the virtuous zeal that leads your towards minds to love your friends and watch your common good. And now, established consul in this place, old Marius will foresee advenient harms. Sylla, the scourge of Asia, as we hear, is pressed to enter Italy with sword. He comes in pomp to triumph here in Rome. But senators, you know the wavering wills of foolish men. I mean the common sort, who through report of innovations, of flattering humors, of well-tempered tongues, will change and draw a second mischief on. I like your care, and will myself apply to aim and level at my country's weal. To intercept these errors by advice, my son, young Marius, Kataigida, and my friends shall tu praeneste, to prevent and stop the speedy purpose of our forward foe. Meanwhile, ourselves will fortify this town, this beauty of the world, this maiden town, while streaming Tiberus with a pleasant tide leads out the stately buildings of the world. Marius, my hope, my son, you know your charge. Take those Iberian legions in your train, and we will spare some Cimbrians to your use. Remember thou art Marius' son, and dream on naught but honor and a happy death.
I go, my lord, in hope to make the world report my service and my duty too, and that proud challenger of Asia shall find that Marius' son hath force and wit.
And exit with Kataigida.
Go thou, as fortunate as Greeks to Troy, as glorious as Alcides in thy toils, as happy as Sertorius in thy fight, as valiant as Achilles in thy might. Go, glorious, valiant, happy, fortunate, as all those Greeks and him of Roman state.
And at this point, enter, led in with soldiers, Cornelia and Fulvia.
Traitors, why drag you thus a prince's wife, as if that beauty were a thrall to fate? Are Romans grown more barbarous than Greeks, that hate more greater than Cassandra now? The Macedonian monarch was more kind, that honoured and relieved in warlike camp Darius's mother, daughters, and his wife. But you, unkind to Roman ladies now, perhaps as constant as the ancient queens, for they, subdued, had friendship in disgrace, where we, unconquered, live in woeful case.
What plaintive pleas presents that lady there? Why, soldiers, make you prisoners here in Rome?
Am I also first soldier?
You are indeed.
Fine, thank you. Dread Consul, we have found Cornelia here, and Sylla's daughter posting out of town.
Ladies of worth, both beautiful and wise, but near allied unto my greatest foe. Yet Marius mine, that never meant disgrace, more likes their courage than their comely face. Are you, Cornelia, madam, Sylla's wife?
I am, Cornelia, Sylla's wife. What then?
And this is Fulvia, Sylla's daughter, too.
And this is Fulvia, Sylla's daughter, too.
2 welcome guests, in whom the majesty of my conceit and courage must consist. What think you, senators and countrymen? See, here are 2, the fairest stars of Rome, the dearest dainties of my warlike foe, whose lives upon your censures do subsist.
Dread Consul, the continuance of their lives shall egg on Sylla to a greater haste. And in bereaving of their vital breath, your grace shall force more fury from your foe. Of these extremes we leave the choice to you.
Then think that some strange fortune shall ensue.
Poor Fulvia, now thy happy days are done. Instead of marriage pomp, the fatal lights of funerals must mask about thy bed, nor shall thy father's arms with kind embrace hem in thy shoulders, trembling now for fear. I see in Marius' looks such tragedies as fear my heart and fountains fill mine eyes.
Fie, Fulvia, shall thy father's daughter faint before the threats of danger shall approach? Dry up those tears, and like a Roman maid, be bold and silent till our foe have said.
Cornelia, wife unto my traitor foe, what gadding mood has forced thy speedy flight to leave thy country and forsake thy friends?
Accursed Marius, offspring of my pains, whose furious wrath hath wrought thy country's woe, what may remain for me or mine in Rome, that see the tokens of thy tyrannies? Vile monster, robbed of virtue, what revenge is this, to wreak thine anger on the walls? To raze our house, to banish all our friends, to kill the rest, and captive us at last? Think'st thou by barbarous deeds to boast thy state, or spoiling Sylla to depress his hate? No, Marius, but for every drop of blood and inch of wrong, he shall return thee too.
Madam, in danger, wisdom doth advise in humble terms to reconcile our foes.
She is a woman, Flaccus. Let her talk, that breathes forth bitter words instead of blows.
And in the regard of that immodest man, thou shouldst desist from outrage and revenge.
What? Can your grace endure these cursed scoffs?
Why, my Lectorius, I have ever learnt that ladies cannot wrong me with upbraids. Then let her talk, and my concealed hate shall heap revengement upon Sylla's pate.
Let fevers first afflict thy feeble age. Let palsies make thy stubborn fingers faint. Let humors streaming from thy moistened brains with clouds of dimness choke thy fretful eyes before these monstrous harms assail my sire.
By Our Lady, Fulvia, you are gaily read. Your mother well may boast you of her own, for both of you have words and scoffs at will. And since I like the compass of your wit, myself will stand, and ladies, you shall sit. And if you please to wade in farther words, let's see what brawls your memories affords.
Your lordship's passing mannerly in jest, but that you may perceive we smell your drift, we both will sit and countenance your shift.
Where constancy and beauty do consort, their ladies' threatenings turn to merry sport. How fare these beautiful? What, well at ease?
As ready as at first for to displease, for full confirmed that we shall surely die, we wait our ends with Roman constancy.
I think you, Marius, have confirmed your death.
What other fruit may spring from tyrants' hands?
In faith, then, ladies, thus the matter stands. Since you mistake my love and courtesy, prepare yourselves, for you shall surely die.
Ay, Marius, now I know thou dost not lie, and that thou mayst unto thy lasting blame extinguish in our deaths thy wished fame. Grant us this boon, that making choice of death, we may be freed from fury of thine ire.
An easy boon, ladies, I condescend.
Then suffer us in private chamber close to meditate a day or two alone, and, tyrant, if thou find us living then, commit us straight unto thy slaughtering men.
Ladies, I grant. For Marius will deny a suit so easy and of such. For Marius nil deny a suit so easy and of such import. For pity 'twere that dames of constancy should not be agents of their misery. Lectorius, hark, dispatch.
Exit Lectorius.
So, Fulvia, now the latest doom is fixed, and naught remains but constant Roman hearts to bear the brunt of irksome fury spite. Rouse thee, my dear, and daunt those faint conceits that trembling stand aghast at bitter death. Bethink thee now that Sylla was thy sire, whose courage heaven nor fortune could abate. Then, like the offspring of fierce Sylla's house, pass with the thrice-renowned Phrygian dame, as to thy marriage, so unto thy death. For naught to wretches is more sweet than death.
Madam, confirmed as well to die as live, Fulvia awaiteth nothing but her death. Yet had my father known the course of change, or seen our loss by lucky augury, this tyrant, nor his followers, had lived to joy the ruin of fierce Sylla's house.
But, lady, they that dwell on fortune's call no sooner rise, but subject are to fall.
Marius, I doubt not but our constant ends shall make thee wail thy tyrant's government.
When tyrant's rule doth breed my care and woe, then I will say 2 ladies told me so. But here comes Lectorius. Now, my lord, have you brought those things?
And
I have,
has
noble
entered
counsel.
Lectorius.
I have, noble counsel.
Now, ladies, are you resolute to die?
Aye, Marius, for terror cannot daunt us. Tortures were framed to dread the baser eye, and not to peel a princely majesty.
And Marius lives to triumph o'er his foes that train their warlike troops amidst the plains, and are enclosed and hemmed with shining arms, not to appeal such princely majesty. Virtue, sweet ladies, is of more regard than in Marius' mind, where humor is enthroned, than Rome or rule of Roman empery.
And here he puts chains about their necks.
The bands that should combine your snow-white wrists are these which shall adorn your milk-white necks. The private cells, where you shall end your lives, is Italy, is Europe, nay, the world. The Exunian Sea, the fierce Sicilian Gulf, the river Ganges, and Hydaspes stream. I shall level lie and smooth as crystal ice, while Fulvia and Cornelia pass thereon. The soldiers that should guard you to your deaths shall be 5,000 gallant youths of Rome, in purple robes, crossbarred with pails of gold, mounted on warlike coursers for the field, fet from the mountain tops of Corsica, or bred in hills of bright Sardinia, who shall conduct and bring you to your lord. I, unto Sylla, ladies, you shall go, and tell him Marius holds within his hands honor for ladies rich reward. But as for Sylla, and for his compeers, who dare against Marius vaunt their golden crests, tell him for them old Marius holds revenge, and in his hands both triumphs, life and death.
Doth Marius use with glorious words to jest, and mock his captives with these glossing terms?
No, ladies, Marius has sought for honor with his sword, and holds disdain to triumph on your falls. Live, Cornelia, live, fair and fairest Fulvia. If you have done or wronged me injury, Sylla shall pay it through his misery.
Oh, gracious, famous consul are thy words, that Rome and we shall celebrate thy worth, and Sylla shall confess himself or come.
If prayers or tears may move the heavens, Sylla shall vow himself old Marius' friend.
Ladies, for that I not at all regard. Sylla's my foe, I'll triumph over him. For other conquests glory doth not win. Therefore come on, that I may send you unto Sylla.
And a exit, end of scene. We've gone quite long, so thoughts about what's going on here with the in-laws of the Sylla here. An interesting series of backs and forths occur. Where are we feeling about this scene and these characters, Lynn?
A couple of things. I find it noteworthy that the accusation of being a traitor that seesaws back and forth. I mean, initially Sylla is the one who refuses to accept the decision of the Senate to remove him and make Marius general. That makes him, technically, he's the traitor. But when Marius comes back to Rome, people are calling him the traitor. So it's the instability of that designation is really interesting, I think. And I'm really enjoying the characterization of Marius in these scenes. That he's different from Sylla. He's not the vaunting military man, but he's highly political. I'm just a private man. Do what you want, so that it's Cinna's responsibility that Octavia is assassinated. And he's going to spare Sylla's wife and daughter, but not before toying with them, not before making it look like he's going to kill them or allow them to commit suicide. So he's quite the politician.
Yes, well, we've seen that gambit of saying you're going to in Jack Straw, the whole thing of we will tell the army that toy with them that we might be about to murder execute all of them. We're only going to execute a couple, and we're just going to toy with everyone over a long speech before we say actually no, you're all right, you're all fine, you're free, and. Yeah, you're right. Cinna's the one who makes the proclamation. There's the appearance of form and process, which he goes through, which Sylla never does. And it's this thing of if you go through some process of government, does that mean that he's less of a tyrant than the other one was? Is he still, just because he's allowing the form to appear there to a degree? Is he just doing power better? And this is something that Tamburlaine, as an issue, plays with, is the question of you can use terror as a weapon, but when you keep using terror as a weapon, it becomes this self-defeating, endless thing where you get generals wandering on stage just going, oh God, do we have to sack another town? Just surrender, please. Lois, Alexandra, and then on.
Yeah. I think there could be quite a nice stage effect if when they come in with the chains. I mean, when I first saw the stage direction, I thought this was going to be bondage, and they could be put around their necks as if they were about to be throttled, and then it turns out that these are very rich gold chains and they're a gift. But it's part of the whole toying with people and liking surprise, which of course is also dramatically effective. But it's also interesting that right at the end, Cornelia does say she could try to make peace between them. And Marius says, no, don't bother. He's my enemy. I want to kill him. And this is in a way, just a way of getting one-upmanship. I mean, trying to make Scylla feel worse by showing, I could have killed your wife and daughter, but I didn't.
I mean, there's some really interesting lines. The private cells where you shall end your lives is Italy, is Europe, nay, the world.
Yeah.
I mean, creating an infinitely expanding prison on a conceptual level, let alone anything else. That's a really interesting thing. Alexandra.
I don't see that Marius is not using terror as a weapon, because this is the same scene as the scene we've just seen. So the women get left in the room with the bloodied chair and the dead body to consider their options. It doesn't feel. It feels to me like an escalation, and a very interesting one, of what we've just seen. We've seen something. We've seen a very brutal response to refusal, and then we see these people being brought in who initially are refusing to submit. So, oh good heavens, I think I know where this is going, and the fact that then it doesn't go there is narrative progress. Yay. I also want to point out Cinna's line in support of what people have been saying about Cinna. Cinna's line a little earlier, which is, well, someone has to be guilty of what's been going on, so I think Scylla and his friends must be the traitors, right? It's very if you put it all together, it's very terrifyingly orchestrated in such a way that I think we see, in an interesting way, Marius basically doing what Scylla just did, but somehow worse.
Well, sort of worse, but also I think more effectively. I mean, it's that sense of Scylla is all very big, grand gestures, and whereas Marius is again, Lynn pointed this out earlier, is that there's a slight remove. He's persuading other people to do bad things for him. He's using Cinna. He's using an idea of a form of process. It's not like he went in and stabbed and the proclamation is made. He isn't marching off with an army. He's just saying no. There's a process. There's a proclamation. I'm sure that'll help. And he's quite nicely honest. I think it's just, look, ladies, you could broach a reconciliation. It's not going to work. Clearly, he will have no interest. We're past that. Helen, then Aliki.
Yeah, I was going to say that any sympathy I may have for Marius is completely lost by this last scene. I mean, there is no need to make them feel that they have to choose suicide or being executed. There is no need to terrorize them at all. If he's decided that he's going to let them go, which he obviously has, then he needs to tell them so. I mean, I had a certain amount of sympathy with Marius. I now have none.
Yeah.
But then I think that's sort of an important element. We shouldn't really necessarily be sympathising with any of the ways that these people are yielding power, and that's possibly the lesson. Aliki.
I was just going to say that it's a much more hard-headed, pragmatic approach. Scylla is sort of flamboyantly cruel. Marius is like, look, it's like this. You choose, I got to do this. This is how power works. Hey.
There is something a bit excessive about what he's doing with Cornelia and Fulvia.
But what he's selling is pragmatism.
Tamara, then Eric.
Well, because we're comparing that analogy just came to me. We're basically comparing two mafia bosses and their tactics. So there's this thing about there's sympathy you have with a certain type of gangster. Some of them have principles, some have different principles, some pretend to have different principles. but it's, it's one of those things with Marius. There is a certain logic in the cruelty that you can see, if that makes sense. I'm just waffling now, but it's like the last scene is, it instantly made me hear the Godfather soundtrack, because that's what it is. It's calculated, and it's a mafia boss showing you who's in charge.
I love it when two separate rooms who haven't met and necessarily intersected come up with the same conclusion about the play. So yeah, we were talking about the Mafia yesterday, so yes, I like that. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I made him an offer he could not refuse and all that stuff. No, it's I was going to say that it sounds a bit like sort of he wants, since he's been sort of made consul and so on, he wants to establish his power, and sort of one way of doing that is showing off how he has control over the lives of the most the people who are most dear to his enemy, basically. And it's effective. Like, if he wants to, he can just kill them, and it's like it's no sort of skin off his back, so to speak.
And it's a massive scene. I mean, the play actually, going to our sort of general thing of, what would we do with this play? The play very reassuringly has a very neat place to put an interval, and in a place where a good time gap is quite useful. So we can go up to the interval of Marius reunited with his son. Isn't this lovely? They're going off to Rome, and then we begin the second half, and we have this massive scene. And this is the thing, this is a massive scene. It's a long scene. It's effectively two scenes to a degree, in the sense that we have this second scene with Cornelia and Fulvia, and it does feel, having run out of time, that we sort of didn't stop and start as much as maybe we do, that is a scene to make work, because there's a lot of work going on there, and the question of, is it actually just a little bit too excessive? And maybe in a production that maybe some adjustments there might be made. I'm not going to go around the whole room. I'm just going to sort of pick out final comments, because we are rapidly running out of time. So Lois, Lynn, Valentina, Rachel.
Yeah, there was something interesting I noticed in this scene, which is just that Anthony, after having, made all these soothing and honeyed speeches, as everybody keeps saying, just runs off when the army comes in. I mean, this is the one character that the audience might have thought was meant to be some sort of spokesperson for their values, and this completely, wrecks him. It's as if the play was determined not to leave us anybody that we could take to be, our man in the play.
Yeah, it's really showing up that those earlier exchanges with Antony are much more self-serving or tricksy than perhaps that at first glance they looked like. Because he just pegs it. And to be fair, it's probably the right decision, because he's nailed his colours to the mast in the previous scenes. He's on the wrong side, and he will get killed, or really badly hurt. Lynn.
Yeah, that was just a nice observation of Lois, is that you end up with like nobody to like. So yeah, I was just going to say, in this last sequence, a lot is going to depend upon the playing. You could argue that what Marius is a pure politician. What he's doing is demonstrating, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he has the power to take these women's lives, and he chooses not to. That's what he's achieving politically by this little farce. But if you play it in a very drawn out way, if you really slow the pace down, then it starts to look a little more, cat toying with the mouse, and just sort of sadistic. So a lot depends on how you play this, how cruel it looks to your actual audience.
Especially as actually Cornelia and Fulvia come in with quite an attacking force, so the scene might have a dynamism to it that we a bit of rehearsal and playing around with might give it. I think you're right that if Marius is drawing it out, then it becomes a slightly different scene. Valentina.
Yeah, as final thoughts, I kind of had the thing that interests me of this play is that it seems to be at least so public and so in the open air. And I think if you have it, I mean, obviously you can stage it however you want, but if you stage it with that amount of people plus the audience in a shared light event, I think what is going to be really interesting is which way the audience is going to side and sway. And I think that scene in particular it's going to have an effect on the audience that maybe we don't see playing amongst us, because he's playing a very, very, very fine game in terms of like, not only is displaying that he's got the power to do whatever he wants and to be a tyrant, but he's also saying like, but I am not going to be a tyrant. So I can, I've got like it. Yeah. Is proving himself in a slightly different way. The other thing that I want to say is like, bloody hell, this play does not let go. The potential for disaster is always there, and that's what I love about it. So.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the red wedding at some point. It's that kind of thing where you're just going, you're just expecting what's the next disaster around the corner. Rachel,
I think this play is very good at dividing. Could be very good at dividing the audience, because Scylla's there and he's got he's got older people on his side and he's making these arguments. I think Marius is that we think, because they're both what I'm trying to say is they're both touting change, the two of them, and Scylla has it touting change for the older people, and Marius is touting this change that is popular with the younger people. And in between all that change, we think that it's going to preserve the Republic. And I think that's where this scene really brings it home, is that we thought for Marius that there was going to be some preservation of the Republic, even though he was saying he was going to change things all along. And I think that this is the point where the audience, realizes, oh, we're screwed, because it's not there's not really here for any sort of government at all. There's no respect for the government on either side, but it's yeah, and I think this is a moment where we don't know where it's going to go at all, but it's not going to go anywhere good.
Yeah, you get towards our imaginary interval of going, yay, the rule of law is going to be restored by the good Marius, and then it doesn't happen. And that's where we're left. I just briefly, before I close the session, just want to go to Alex, who's joined us today and hasn't said too much. Do you have any final thoughts for us from your one day perspective? Muted at the moment.
It's quite hard, as it always is, to get a handle on the whole thing coming into it to a bit in the middle, and it's been interesting hearing about sort of what the comments people have been making on the way these characters have developed from yesterday, and that sort of defiance of expectation, and that you sort of pin hopes on one character who then goes in a different direction. What's actually struck me today, because I've also had a while away from these sessions, is, and having read about original practice, which is something I've been reading about in the interim, is how these plays would have been slung together originally, because we find all this mileage in discussing it and thinking that this would have been rehearsed in essentially in a day. And I think I made a very quick decision about Pedro scanning the script, referring it to something that I know as a trope that exists in this period, and playing it that way. And it's interesting hearing about different ways you could do that. And it's such a titanic piece. It boggles my mind just how you would put this together, and how much would be reliant on previous embodied knowledge or previous tropes. The whole Tamburlaine chariot thing, the whole echo scene, things that would immediately you'd go to an actor and kind of go, that's what this is, go away and do it. It's extraordinary. It boggles my mind. I'd really love to see where the play goes, if only because it's sort of scanning ahead that you get the clown character, you get is it Poppy and Kurt?
No spoilers.
Sorry,
there is a clown.
You get characters who seem to me on a scan read to jar the mood and act against all this highfalutin, kind of, Roman politics, Roman drama, that bring it to a very domestic place, and that look to me like trope characters, and how they leaven, season, react to the big drama going on around them, I'd find really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a clown tomorrow, and I feel that it's almost certainly going to be doubled with Pedro, and with the moderately comic character we encountered in the first session, and that this clown is split 3 ways across the play. Well, that's my impression of that. Though of course that may not be accurate and may not come out with a wider doubling. I'm going to have to close the session. We have no more time. It has been another really good session. Another play session that's brought out all sorts of questions and possibilities and issues and things with this text. So all that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers and their contributions today, and goodbye.
Bye.